this week's Parsha, Parshas Noach, obviously talks about the Mabul, the flood, the destruction of humankind, of animal kind, while Noach and his family were spared. The Psukim in Perek Zayin, Psukim Zayin Chestes, discuss how Noach and his family enters the Teva, enters the Ark. Noach and his family went into the Teva because of the waters of the flood. And all the animals, the ones that were pure, the ones that were not pure, the birds, the ones that were crawling on the ground, they all came two by two. They all came in pairs as Hashem commanded Noach. The Gemara in Psachim and Gimel Amud Aleph quotes from Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. We see from these psukim, a person should never speak in a disgraceful, in a debased kind of way. A person has to always be careful about being refined, polite, pure in his speech. Why? Because akam ha-kaso shmona osios. The pasuk here kind of bent over backwards and added on 8 unnecessary letters when describing these animals, because it says, Mina be'ima Torah. You should take, or came to Noach from the pure animals. Umin ha-be'ima asher einena Torah. And from the animals that were not pure. Pure and not pure, they all came to Noach in pairs. However, the way the Torah often describes animals are Torah, utmeya. However, here it says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, the pasuk is specifically going out of its way to teach us that min habema Torah, the pure, min habema asher einena Torah. As opposed to saying pure and impure, it's pure and not pure. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, we see from here the importance of always being careful about not being moti davar magun mipiv, not speaking in a disgraceful way. It's interesting if we think about the source as Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is quoting it. What's going on here? If we could paint a picture of the scene, all of humanity has become corrupt. They've sinned. Ad kedei kach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying maybe the whole enterprise of creating humanity was a mistake. Noach matzachen b'nei Hashem. He's going to be spared. He's going to be saved. And from him is going to be the kernel for the rest of humanity. However, all around is sin, is corruption, is now going to be imminently destruction of everything in the most absolute kind of way we ever seen and will see. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, specifically here the Torah is telling us, be careful about how you speak. Be careful about saying things in a refined way. If there be one time where I would think, relative to what's going on, maybe refined speech is not that important. Relative to the ultimate sense of destruction that's about to come upon humankind, okay, saying Torah to me maybe wouldn't be so bad. Says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, there's never a time when we can say, relative to what's going on around me, I'm speaking okay. Apparently, even in this, maybe specifically here, where I might think that all standards of being refined, of being pure are gone, look at all the terrible suffering going on. The Torah is telling us, no, even here, unfortunately, they're suffering for their sins. Unfortunately, they acted in a way that was unrefined, that was impure. But that's not an excuse for you to lower your standards in any way. We live in a world where, unfortunately, the way people speak, the kind of music people listen to, things people see, the way people behave, is often the opposite of refinement, is often the opposite of purity. What Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is telling us from these psukim are that it's never an excuse to be compared to what's going on around us. We're always going to be judged based on how refined we could potentially be. So that's lesson 1. Lesson 2, though, is that often it's not so practical. What do I mean? If we lived in the shtetl, if we lived in Yerushalayim and grew up like Rosh Zalman, maybe we could say, I haven't heard such things. I haven't seen people speak in such a way. It's much easier to be refined. But is it so practical when I'm exposed and even if now I'm in Sha'alvim or I'm in post-Sha'alvim, I heard music, I saw movies that can't get out of my head, from 10, 20 years ago. So what am I supposed to do now? The answer is we're supposed to be as refined as possible. Do your best. Hashem doesn't expect us to be perfect. At the same time, though, I want to give an eitzah, at least in specific times, we have to be additionally on guard to try to live out this lesson of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. What do I mean? When we're speaking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the words we're using are going to be refined. The words we're using are going to be pure. Why? Because of the words of Chazal and the Tefillah. However, we have to try to be thinking about them and expressing them with the most purest of hearts. What do I mean? We have to be not distracted by our phones. We have to do our best and not be distracted by talking to the people around us. If we're talking about learning, we have to be distracted. We have to be focused on not interrupting ourselves. But at the very least, in the time of tefillah, in the time of Torah, to do our best, as Rabbi Shimon Levi says, Lo yotzi adam davar megunim mipiv. And even if the words themselves are pure, that our kavanah should be pure. Meubi zoche, both outside of the base medrash, outside of the shul, and inside the shul, to always try to be as pure, refined, as holy as possible. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should see at least we're doing our best during the times of Torah and tefillah, and then help us along the way to always be in a state of purity and kedusha.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.